There comes a moment in life when you have to stop, get quiet, and take a good, honest look at yourself. Not at the person you tell everybody you are, not at the person you hope to become someday, but at the person you are right now. Where are you? What are you doing every day? What habits are you repeating? What are you tolerating? And most importantly, is the life you're living taking you closer to the person you want to become? That's not always an easy question to answer. In fact, sometimes it's uncomfortable. But discomfort can be useful when it tells you the truth. You see, one of the greatest problems people face isn't that they don't know what they want. Most people have dreams. They want better health, stronger relationships, financial freedom, peace of mind, meaningful work, and a life they can be proud of. The problem is that there can be a tremendous distance between what we say we want and what we actually do every day. And that distance is where your life is being created. Maybe you've been saying, I'll start tomorrow. Tomorrow I'll get serious. Tomorrow I'll exercise. Tomorrow I'll read. Tomorrow I'll work on my business. Tomorrow I'll fix my finances. Tomorrow I'll stop wasting time. Tomorrow I'll become disciplined. But tomorrow has a strange way of becoming next week, next month, and eventually next year. Then one day you wake up and realize that time didn't wait for you. So the first step in rebuilding your life is to wake up. And waking up doesn't mean simply opening your eyes in the morning. It means becoming conscious of the direction your life is moving. Look at your routine. What do you do when nobody is watching? How do you spend your mornings? What do you do with those extra hours? What kind of thoughts occupy your mind? What do you repeatedly tell yourself? Who are you listening to? What are you consuming? What are you avoiding? Because your life is not primarily shaped by what you intend to do. It's shaped by what you consistently do. If you spend years blaming circumstances, circumstances become your excuse. If you spend years waiting for someone to rescue you, you become dependent on rescue. If you spend years telling yourself that you're unlucky, incapable, or too far behind, eventually you begin living according to that story. But here's the good news. A story can be rewritten. You don't have to pretend that everything is perfect. You don't have to deny your mistakes. You don't have to pretend that you haven't wasted time or made poor decisions. Face it, own it, learn from it. There is tremendous strength in saying, this is where I am and I am responsible for what I do next. Responsibility isn't punishment. Responsibility is power. The moment you stop blaming everyone else, you regain control over the part of your life that belongs to you. You may not control what happened yesterday. You may not control other people's decisions. You may not control the opportunities you missed, but you can control what you do today. And today is where rebuilding begins. Maybe you've neglected your health. Start taking care of your body. Maybe you've neglected your mind. Start reading, learning, and thinking. Maybe you've neglected your finances. Start tracking where your money goes and making wiser decisions. Maybe you've surrounded yourself with people who constantly pull you backward. Start creating healthier boundaries. Maybe you've lost confidence because you've broken too many promises to yourself. Then stop making huge promises and start keeping small ones. Get up when you said you would. Finish what you started. Do the workout. Read the pages. Complete the task. Turn off the distraction. Make the phone call. Take the first step. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you rebuild a little bit of self-respect, and don't underestimate small beginnings. A great life is rarely rebuilt in one dramatic moment. It's rebuilt quietly, decision by decision, habit by habit, day by day. You don't need to fix your entire life this morning. You need to stop running from the truth and begin working with it. Ask yourself, what isn't working anymore? Then ask, what am I willing to change? Those two questions can open a new chapter, because once you become honest about where you are, you can finally decide where you're going. And that decision will lead us to the next step, refusing to let your past become the blueprint for your future. Wake up, face the truth, and take your life back. Now, let me tell you something important. You cannot rebuild your life while constantly looking backward at what went wrong. You can study your past, you can learn from it, you can understand it, but you cannot live there. Some people spend years carrying old mistakes like they're carrying a suitcase everywhere they go. A failure from 10 years ago is still sitting on their shoulders. A rejection from 5 years ago is still influencing their confidence. Something somebody said to them years ago is still determining what they believe they can become today, and I understand why. The past can be powerful. When you have been disappointed enough times, you begin expecting disappointment. When you've failed enough times, you begin expecting failure. When you've trusted the wrong people, you become afraid to trust anyone. When you've made poor decisions with money, relationships, time, or opportunity, you may begin thinking, maybe this is just the way my life is going to be. But no, That's not the way it has to be. Your past may explain some things about you, but it does not have to define everything about you. You made mistakes? Good. Learn from them. You lost time? Then become more intentional with the time you have left. You failed at something? Study the failure. Find the lesson. Improve your approach. You made a bad decision? Don't spend the next 10 years making another bad decision by refusing to make a better one. That's the difference between regret and wisdom. Regret says, I wish I had done things differently. Wisdom says, now I know what to do differently. You see, you don't need to erase your past to build a better future. You need to extract the lesson from it. Think about that. The very thing you wish had never happened may contain something you desperately need to learn. Maybe that difficult season taught you patience. Maybe that failure taught you preparation. Maybe losing something taught you appreciation. Maybe being disappointed taught you discernment. Maybe struggling taught you discipline. Maybe walking through a lonely season forced you to discover who you really were. Don't waste the pain. If you're going to go through something difficult, don't come out of it empty-handed. Take the lesson with you, but there's another trap you have to avoid. Using your past as an excuse for your present, you can say, I didn't have the right opportunities. Maybe that's true. You can say, nobody encouraged me. Maybe that's true. You can say, I made some terrible choices. Absolutely. But eventually, you have to ask a different question. What am I going to do now? That's the question that changes everything, because your future doesn't need permission from your past. You don't have to wait until you feel confident to begin. Confidence often comes after action, not before it. You don't have to wait until everything is healed, perfect, organized, and comfortable. You begin with what you have, where you are, and you improve as you go. Maybe you've spent years believing you're behind. Listen carefully. Being behind is not the same thing as being finished. There are people who started late and built extraordinary lives. There are people who failed repeatedly and eventually learned how to succeed. There are people who wasted years and then became incredibly intentional with the years that remained. Your timeline doesn't have to look like somebody else's. Stop comparing your chapter 3 to somebody else's chapter 15. You don't know their entire story, and they don't know yours. What matters is what you do with today. And sometimes rebuilding your life requires forgiving yourself. Not because what you did didn't matter, but because you cannot keep punishing yourself for something you already understand. If you've learned the lesson, stop paying the same price every day. Forgive yourself, then improve yourself. There is a big difference between saying, I made a mistake, and saying, I am a mistake. One describes something you did. The other becomes an identity. Never confuse the two. You are not your worst decision. You are not your biggest failure. You are not the rejection you experienced. You are not the opportunity you missed. You are not the version of yourself that existed before you knew what you know now. You are still becoming. So make a decision today that your past will become a teacher, not a prison. Take the lesson. Leave the shame, take the wisdom. Leave the excuse, take responsibility. Leave the bitterness, and then turn around and face the road ahead. Because there's something waiting for you in the future that your past cannot give you. Another opportunity to become better. You don't need a new life handed to you. You need new decisions made by you. Your past is a chapter, not your conclusion. But here's where the real rebuilding begins. It's one thing to decide that your past won't control you. It's another thing to prove that decision through the way you live every day, because a better life doesn't come from one powerful thought. It comes from better habits repeated long enough to produce better results. And that's where discipline enters the picture. A lot of people think discipline is punishment. They hear the word and immediately think about restriction, sacrifice, getting up early, saying no, working when you don't feel like working. But discipline isn't about making your life miserable. Discipline is about making your future better. It's choosing what you want most over what you want right now. You want better health, but you also want to stay comfortable. You want financial freedom, but you also want to spend everything you earn. You want knowledge, but you'd rather watch another hour of entertainment. You want success, but you'd rather wait until you feel motivated. And that's the battle. Every day, life asks you a simple question. Are you going to live according to your intentions or according to your impulses? Your impulses say, I'll do it later. Discipline says, I'll do it now. Your impulses say, I'm tired. Discipline says, do what you can. Your impulses say, nobody will know. Discipline says, I will know. And that last one matters because the most important person you're building trust with is yourself. Think about how you feel when you repeatedly tell yourself you're going to do something and then don't do it. You say you're going to exercise, but you don't. You say you're going to read, but you don't. You say you're going to wake up earlier, but you keep hitting the alarm. You say you're going to stop wasting money, but you keep spending without thinking. Eventually, something happens inside you. You stop believing yourself. That's dangerous, but the reverse is also true. Every time you make a promise to yourself and keep it, you strengthen something inside you. You develop confidence. You develop self-respect. You begin to think, if I say I'm going to do something, I do it. That's how you rebuild yourself, not through one giant transformation, but through hundreds of small victories. Start small. If your life is disorganized, don't try to fix everything in one weekend. Clean one room, organize one drawer, finish one neglected task. If your health is suffering, don't promise yourself you'll become a completely different person tomorrow. Start walking. Drink more water. Improve one meal. Go to bed at a reasonable time. If your mind has become distracted, don't suddenly demand 5 hours of deep study every day. Start with 15 focus minutes. Read a few pages. Learn something useful. Then come back tomorrow and do it again. If your finances are a mess, don't panic because you can't fix everything immediately. Start by knowing where your money is going. Track it. Cut one unnecessary expense. Make one better decision. Small actions may seem insignificant when you do them once, but repeat them for a year, and suddenly they aren't small anymore. That's the secret people often miss. They look at successful people and see the result. They don't see the repetition that created it. They see the healthy body, but not the ordinary workouts. They see the successful business, but not the years of learning, mistakes, early mornings, and difficult decisions. They see confidence, but not the countless moments when someone chose to keep a promise to themselves. Success is often ordinary things done consistently, so don't become obsessed with dramatic change. Become committed to daily improvement. Ask yourself every morning, what is one thing I can do today that my future self will be grateful for? Then do that thing. And tomorrow do another. This is how your life starts changing direction. You don't need to feel motivated every morning. Motivation is wonderful when it shows up, but it isn't reliable enough to build your life around. Some days you'll feel inspired. Other days you'll feel tired. Some days you'll be excited about the future. Other days you'll question everything. That's normal. Discipline means you don't let your emotions make every important decision for you. You learn to work when you don't feel like working. You learn to continue when the excitement disappears. You learn to keep going when nobody is applauding. And eventually, something beautiful happens. The habits that once required tremendous effort begin to become normal. Getting up early becomes normal. Reading becomes normal. Exercise becomes normal. Saving becomes normal. Keeping your word becomes normal. Working toward your goals becomes normal. And when good behavior becomes normal, your life begins to reflect it. So don't ask, how can I completely change my life this week? Ask, what can I consistently do from this day forward? That's a much better question because your future is being built in the quiet moments when nobody is watching. Every choice is a brick. Every habit is another piece of the foundation. Every disciplined day is another step away from the old version of you and toward the person you're capable of becoming. And remember, discipline doesn't mean you'll never fail. You will have bad days. You'll miss a workout. You'll waste an evening. You'll make a poor decision. Don't turn one bad day into a bad month. Get back on track. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is direction. Keep moving in the right direction long enough and your life will eventually have to change. Rebuild yourself one promise, one habit, and one disciplined day at a time. Your future is built by what you repeat today. And once you begin building discipline into your life, you discover something important. Discipline gives you the strength to act, but eventually you have to act. You can think about changing your life. You can plan it. You can write goals in a notebook. You can watch motivational speeches, read books, make lists, and talk about what you're going to do. All of that can be useful, but none of it can replace action. At some point, you've got to move because there's a dangerous habit that looks productive but isn't. It's called waiting for the perfect moment. People say, I'll start when I have more money. I'll start when I have more time. I'll start when I know more. I'll start when I'm confident. I'll start when things settle down. But let me ask you something. When exactly do you think life is going to become perfectly convenient? There will always be something. There will always be a reason to wait. There will always be another problem to solve, another responsibility to handle, another fear to overcome. If you make perfect circumstances a requirement for action, you may spend your entire life standing at the starting line. You don't need perfect conditions. You need a decision. Look at where you are right now. Maybe you don't have everything you want. Fine. Start with what you have. Maybe you don't know everything you need to know. Fine. Learn as you go. Maybe you're afraid. Fine. Take the step while you're afraid. Courage isn't the absence of fear. Courage is deciding that something matters more than the fear trying to stop you. And sometimes the first action is incredibly small. Make the phone call, assess the application, open the book, take the walk, write the first page, have the difficult conversation, dim the distraction, decorate the schedule, save the first amount of money, start the project. You don't have to see the entire staircase before taking the first step. You just have to take the first step. You know what happens when you take action? You get information. Planning can tell you what you think might happen. Action tells you what actually happens. You may discover that your idea needs to change. Good. You may discover that you're not as prepared as you thought. Good, now you know what to learn. You may fail. Good, now you know what needs improvement. You may succeed faster than expected. Wonderful. Now you have evidence that movement creates opportunity. But if you never move, you never get any of that information, and that's why some people remain stuck for years. They're trying to eliminate every possibility of failure before they begin. That's impossible. You cannot guarantee success before you act. You can only increase your chances by preparing, learning, improving, and moving forward. Think about a person standing at the edge of a swimming pool, studying the water for 3 hours. They analyze the temperature. They look at the depth. They watch other people swim. They discuss technique. But eventually, if they want to learn to swim, they've got to get in the water. Life is much the same. You learn some things by studying. You learn other things by doing. And there are lessons that action can teach you that thinking never will. So stop demanding certainty from yourself. You don't need to know exactly how everything will turn out. You need enough clarity to take the next useful step, then take another, then another. That's how momentum is created. And momentum is powerful because the hardest part of change is often not continuing. It's beginning. When you've been inactive for a long time, even a small action feels enormous. But once you start moving, something changes. You begin seeing possibilities. Your confidence increases. Your energy changes. You start thinking differently because you're no longer merely imagining a new life. You are participating in creating one. Don't underestimate what one decision can do. One decision to wake up earlier can change your mornings. One decision to stop spending carelessly can change your finances. One decision to start exercising can change your health. One decision to read every day can change your mind. One decision to leave a destructive environment can change your direction. One decision to take responsibility can change your entire attitude toward life. You may not be able to rebuild everything today, but you can make one decision today that changes the direction of everything that comes after it. And here's another thing. Don't wait for motivation to give you permission. Sometimes motivation comes after action. You take the walk, and then you feel better. You start working, and then you become focused. You begin learning, and then you become interested. You take responsibility, and then you begin feeling empowered. Action creates evidence. Evidence creates confidence. Confidence creates more action. That's how the cycle begins. So if you've been waiting to feel ready, let me give you some good news. You may never feel completely ready. Do it anyway. If you've been waiting for everyone to support you, you may be waiting a long time. Do it anyway. If you've been waiting until you're no longer afraid, you may never begin. Do it afraid. Your life isn't going to be rebuilt by another promise that you'll start someday. It's going to be rebuilt by what you do today. And once you begin taking action, you'll discover another truth. The direction of your life is influenced not only by what you do, but also by what you allow into your mind and by the people you allow around you. That's where the next part of rebuilding begins. Stop waiting for the perfect moment. Use the moment you have. And now that you're taking action, you need to understand something that can make or break the life you're trying to rebuild. You have to become careful about what you allow into your mind, because your mind is not a storage room where everything can be thrown in without consequence. What you read, what you watch, what you listen to, what you talk about, and who you spend your time with all leave an impression. You may not notice it today. You may not notice it tomorrow, but over months and years, those influences begin shaping the way you think, and the way you think eventually shapes the way you live. If you constantly feed your mind fear, negativity, gossip, complaints, and excuses, don't be surprised when you begin seeing problems everywhere. But if you feed your mind ideas, knowledge, courage, possibility, discipline, and solutions, something different begins to happen. You start looking for opportunities instead of obstacles. You start asking better questions. You start thinking about what can be done instead of explaining why it can't be done. That's why rebuilding your life isn't only about changing your schedule. It's about changing your mental diet. Think about what you've been consuming lately. What are you watching for hours? What conversations are you having repeatedly? What kind of information fills your attention? Are you learning, or are you simply being entertained? Are you being challenged, or are you constantly being comforted? Are the things you're consuming helping you become stronger, wiser, and more capable? Or are they keeping you distracted from the work you know you need to do? You don't have to eliminate entertainment. You don't have to become serious every minute of every day. But you do need balance. You can't spend 5 hours feeding your mind distraction and expect one motivational video to completely change your thinking. You have to become intentional. Ride something useful. Listen to ideas that challenge you. Study people who have built what you're trying to build. Learn a skill. Drop down your thoughts. Spend a few minutes each day thinking without a screen in front of you. Ask yourself better questions. Instead of saying, "Why is my life so difficult?" Ask, "What can I do about it?" Instead of, "Why don't I have what they have?" Ask, "What can I learn from them?" Instead of, "Why did this happen to me?" Ask, "What can this teach me?" A better question can lead to a better decision. And a better decision can begin creating a better life. But there's another part of this that people sometimes underestimate. The people around you, your environment matters. You can have strong intentions. But if you're constantly surrounded by people who encourage your worst habits, mock your goals, celebrate excuses, and tell you that improvement is impossible, you're going to have a much harder battle on your hands. You don't have to hate those people. You don't have to become arrogant. You don't have to announce that you're changing and demand that everyone change with you. Sometimes rebuilding your life simply means creating healthier boundaries. Spend less time around what pulls you backward. Spend more time around what pulls you forward. Find people who are serious about growth, people who read, people who work, people who take responsibility, people who don't spend every conversation complaining about what everyone else is doing wrong. You become influenced by the standards around you. If everyone around you thinks wasting time is normal, you'll have to fight to protect your time. If everyone around you thinks learning is valuable, you'll naturally become more curious. If everyone around you takes responsibility, responsibility becomes normal. If everyone around you makes excuses, excuses start sounding reasonable. That's why you need to be intentional about your environment. And remember, sometimes the most important person you need to distance yourself from is not another person. It's an old version of yourself, the version that says, "This is just who I am." The version that says, "I can't change." The version that says, "I've already wasted too much time." The version that says, "People like me don't succeed." You have to challenge those thoughts. You don't have to believe every thought that enters your mind. Just because you've thought something for 10 years doesn't make it true. Maybe you were told that you weren't capable. Maybe you failed once and decided you weren't good enough. Maybe you've spent years comparing yourself to people who seem to have everything figured out. Stop. You are allowed to change the story. And one of the best ways to change the story is to change what you repeatedly expose yourself to. Feed your mind with better ideas. Give your attention to better conversations. Learn from better examples. Spend time with people who remind you of what's possible. And then take those ideas into your daily life. Because knowledge without action is only potential. You don't read about discipline just to know what discipline means. You practice it. You don't study success just to admire successful people. You apply what you learn. You don't surround yourself with positive influences just to feel good. You allow those influences to raise your standards. That's when your environment becomes powerful, your mind changes, your choices change, your habits change, and eventually your results change. So protect your mind, protect your time, protect your direction. You are rebuilding something valuable, and you cannot afford to keep handing the blueprint to anything that wants to tear it down. Choose what enters your mind, choose who influences your life, and choose the standards you are willing to live by. Guard your mind, because your future is built there first. And now we come to the part that brings everything together. You've changed your thinking. You've started changing your habits. You've taken action. You've become more careful about what you allow into your mind and who you allow to influence your direction. But here's where the real test begins. Can you keep going? Because rebuilding your life isn't something you finish in a weekend. It's not a project you complete once and then put away. Your life is something you build every single day, and that means you have to stop looking for the moment when everything becomes perfect. There will always be another level to reach, another habit to improve, another lesson to learn, another weakness to strengthen, another opportunity to become wiser. That's not a problem. That's life. The goal isn't to reach some imaginary point where you never struggle again. The goal is to become the kind of person who knows how to handle the struggle when it comes. You don't need a life without problems. You need the character to face problems without allowing them to destroy your direction. That's what you're building now. You're building yourself. And let me tell you something. The greatest evidence that your life is changing isn't always found in your bank account, your job title, your possessions, or the applause you receive from other people. Sometimes the greatest evidence is quieter. You wake up and keep your promise to yourself. You recognize an old temptation and choose differently. You become calmer in situations that once controlled you. You stop needing everybody's approval. You become more disciplined with your time. You start taking responsibility instead of searching for someone to blame. You become comfortable saying no to things that once distracted you. You begin respecting yourself again. Those changes matter, because before you can build a better life on the outside, you have to become stronger on the inside. And that's why you shouldn't become discouraged when the results seem slow. A tree doesn't become strong because you stand beside it every morning and demand that it grow faster. You plant it, you water it, you protect it. You give it time, then one day you look up and realize that what once looked like a tiny beginning has become something substantial. Your life can work the same way. You read one page today, you save a little money today, you exercise today. You make one better decision today. You spend your time more wisely today. You learn something today. You keep one promise to yourself today. None of those actions may look extraordinary, but repeat them and repeat them again. And keep repeating them when nobody notices. That's when transformation begins. Don't underestimate the power of ordinary days. People often think their future will be changed by some extraordinary event. They imagine the perfect opportunity, the big break, the lucky moment, the sudden transformation. Sometimes those moments happen. But more often, your future is decided in ordinary moments. What did you do this morning? What did you do with your afternoon? What did you choose when nobody was watching? What did you do when you didn't feel motivated? That's where your character is being formed. And character eventually determines what you can sustain. You might get an opportunity because of luck, but you need character to make something out of it. You might achieve a goal, but you need discipline to maintain it. You might experience success, but you need wisdom to handle it. So don't just build a life that looks impressive. Build a life that feels meaningful. Build a life where you can respect the person you see in the mirror. Build a life where your actions match your values. Build a life where your time is being spent on things that matter. Build relationships that are honest and healthy. Build skills that make you more valuable. Build habits that make you stronger. Build financial practices that give you more freedom. Build a mind that doesn't collapse every time life becomes difficult. That's a life worth being proud of. And understand this. You don't have to become somebody else. You don't have to copy another person's journey. You don't have to live according to somebody else's definition of success. Your responsibility is to become the best version of yourself that you can honestly build. Maybe your progress is slower than somebody else's. Keep going. Maybe nobody is congratulating you yet. Keep going. Maybe you've had another setback. Learn, adjust, and keep going. Maybe you don't see the results you expected. Keep building. The person who keeps going has an advantage over the person who keeps starting over. And when you fall, don't make the mistake of thinking the fall erased everything you've built. It didn't. You learned something. You gained experience. You discovered another weakness that needs attention. Get back up. Start again. Continue. There is no shame in beginning again when you're beginning with more wisdom than you had before. So look at your life now. Maybe it isn't where you want it to be. That's okay. You know where you are. You know what needs to change. And now you know something else. You have the ability to change it, not all at once, not perfectly, but deliberately. One decision, one habit, one disciplined day, one courageous action, one better thought, one better choice, and then another, until one day you look back and realize that you didn't simply rebuild your circumstances, you rebuilt yourself, and that is the real victory. Because when you become stronger, wiser, disciplined, and intentional, you carry that person into every new chapter. You can lose a job and rebuild. You can lose money and rebuild. You can experience failure and rebuild. You can start over later than you wanted and still rebuild. As long as you haven't given up on yourself, the story isn't finished. So don't spend the rest of your life wishing you had started sooner. Start now. Don't waste another year waiting to become the person you know you can be. Don't keep carrying an old identity that no longer belongs to you. Wake up. Stand up. Take responsibility. Build your habits. Protect your mind. Choose your environment. Take action. and then keep going until the life you're living becomes evidence of the person you've decided to become. You don't need a perfect life. You need a life you are proud to keep building.